Good morning, all. My name is Alan Hanson, formerly of Simpson Strong Tie, retired a few years ago. We're bringing this to you today live, virtually, that is. Margaret Vinci, the manager of the Office of Earthquake Programs with Caltech, and Heidi Rosofsky with Global Vision Consortium are here as well. So we're with the ECA, and we just kicked off our ShakeOut. 30 million plus people were registered for this event. So we're back to a very large number after kind of a slow year last year with the pandemic. But we participated in earthquake drills, that kind of thing, drop, cover, and hold on. And ECA is also the group that does the 7 steps to earthquake safety. So thank you very much. And I'll turn it over to Margaret Vinci.
Hi, welcome everybody. It's great to be with you again. So it is my pleasure to introduce Yosef Jalil. He is the director of the Emergency Network of Los Angeles, to many of you known as ENLA. After a brief pause, we are very excited to have ENLA active again and welcome a strong collaboration between ECA and ENLA with projects that we can then do. So ENLA recently completed a very successful ShakeOut tabletop exercise. And this was developed from scratch. And we thought that this was a great opportunity to be able to share this with our ECA membership. The lessons learned and encourage other people to do this, to do their plans as well. Some of you might be hesitant on still how to start a plan. So we thought that this would be a great opportunity to learn from Yosef as how he started this from scratch and how he put it together. It was a very successful event. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Yosef.
Well, thank you so much, Margaret, for that great introduction. And I just want to thank all of the partners at ECA for inviting me here today for this very special event. My name is Yosef Jalil, and I'm the program director for Emergency Network Los Angeles. That is Los Angeles County VOAD. We're essentially a nonprofit umbrella network of emergency management nonprofits working together with government partners at the municipal, county, state, and federal levels. I'd like to go ahead. I was invited here today, just as Margaret described, to discuss not only who we are, but our experience with the Great Shakeout and the event we had, and the lessons we learned from our event. So if we could just go to the next slide. Great. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the word VOAD, which I used earlier, that means a voluntary organization active in disaster. And as I described, this is really a network of usually not-for-profit second responders organizations. We're a part of California VOAD. There are 56 state and territorial VOADs all over the country. And we work very closely with our government partners, and we are activated by them during an emergency. Next slide, please. We started 25 years ago, actually exactly, when we were officially incorporated. And that was after the fallout of the Northridge earthquake. That we saw that there was a need for such an organization. We're comprised of, we have a board, but we also have just member affiliates and members as well. We're about 40 nonprofits working in the space. And like I said, working with government partners at all levels. And we also, great thing we have is that our work is year round, and that we work very much in committees, focusing on items like donations management, communications, volunteer management, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. And as I said, we work all year round, so we're really involved in all aspects of disaster. Of course, for us, disaster isn't about the day there's an earthquake or a day there's a wildfire. It's about all aspects, preparing for disasters, mitigating against disasters, working with government agencies, working with individuals, making sure they have the right insurance, so on and so forth. And working with long-term recovery, understanding that, just because an affected individual gets food or shelter in the immediate aftermath of a disaster doesn't mean their needs end there. They'll probably have housing needs, they might have mental health needs. And we, again, look at disaster and emergency management in a holistic sense, really as 4 parts of a cycle. And some of the work that our nonprofits are involved in is providing goods or legal services or insurance services. It might provide medical care, emotional and spiritual care, shelter, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. And these are, I created this slide to just show you that we're involved with really some of the largest organizations involved in the emergency management space or the community welfare space in Los Angeles County. As you can see, huge faith partners such as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 211, the American Red Cross, Team Rubicon, Salvation Army, very large names in the emergency management sector, but also, next slide, please, our government partners as well. Everybody at the, large county organizations, FEMA, Cal OES. We have cooperative ties with cities all over the county. Next slide, please. But also, as going in reference to the earlier slide, organizations, smaller organizations with operating budgets in the thousands of dollars, not in the millions, that are involved at the community level, small houses of faith that are interested in the emergency management sector, smaller community-based organizations that might work at the at the neighborhood level. Compton Veterans, for example, a veterans organization staffed by a few individuals that works in the South Central community, working with veterans who've returned from military duty, socializing them and working in on community welfare projects, or just assisting in emergencies wherever they can with volunteers. And this is really the backbone of our VOAD. We deeply value the partnerships we have with our larger partners. But again, when talking about this holistic approach to emergency management, we look at smaller organizations, these small houses of faith, so on and so forth, to build our partnerships and to really execute our emergency management plans accordingly. And next slide, please. So we want to talk about our exercise that we did for our VOAD network just 2 weeks ago on October 28th. We did it on Zoom because we're still in the COVID paradigm, of course. We had 54 participants from all over our VOAD, and this includes both players and support personnel. And we exercised a moderately sized disaster, not an apocalyptic event, and I'll explain why later. And we did this essentially looking in 2 different windows of time. The first one being the 0 to 4 day window, second one being the 4 to 7 day window after disaster. And I'll explain why also. And we organized our participants into 3 different groups. One focused on donations management and volunteer management. So groups focusing on how to collect volunteers, how to assign them according to their skill, how to collect donations, so on and so forth, emotional and spiritual care and recovery. So looking more at the long-term needs of affected individuals and looking after them. And then mass care and communications, looking at the immediate needs of folks affected, and also understanding how are we getting out the messaging to a community that's been affected by disaster. What are we doing if, for example, phone lines are down? How are we making sure that people know to go to a certain point in the city, or what streets are blocked off, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So the scenario, as you can see, and we had wonderful help from Margaret, Vinci, and our friends at the Caltech Seismological Laboratory, and we thank her for her support in helping build this, was that there was a 5.6, magnitude 5.6 earthquake in Whittier. And as you can see here, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over everything, but there was shaking for 20 to 30 seconds. It was felt in the area. The Shake Alert app was engaged, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. And then just some more major points on the scenario. Again, 5.6 earthquake that happened at 1:00 p.m. So this is the time where kids are in school, folks are at work, so they might be separated from one another. There was severe shaking in the epicenter in the city of Whittier, which we had damage very specifically localized to there. And something that we wanted to really stress, which is what I have highlighted here, is that outside of looking at the technical aspects of disaster, so fault lines and shaking and damage and casualties, so on and so forth, we wanted to include injects that humanized our those affected. For example, we understand that LA County is among the most diverse places in the world, and we're very proud of that fact. And many times when disaster strikes our county, we have to look at linguistic issues. We understand that not everybody in the county is a fluent speaker, a native speaker of English, and that we need to be looking after their needs in languages that they understand, in culturally sensitive and competent formats. So we looked at kind of three different linguistic groups that we had to then find, our organizations had to then find volunteers for, and not only to communicate with them, but also to understand kind of what needs they might have, or what cultural sensitivities they might have, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, it was a 2-hour exercise. We did have, at the end of it, a hot wash that extended beyond the 2-hour mark, which was optional. But it was something that we wanted to be, we didn't want to have go on for too much time. We wanted to be respectful, of course, of our organizations and the great work that they're doing. But we had a 2-hour event on a Thursday. Next slide, please. And there are a couple of whys here as to why we did certain things the way we did. One was getting back to that earlier point on not having an apocalyptic event. We wanted to find kind of the quote unquote Goldilocks zone of a disaster that was just large enough to cause significant damage and create challenges, but small enough to not draw in state or federal agencies. We wanted to focus on what our abilities were, kind of at the county level. Also, we created multiple groups so that we could have silos of conversations focused on different subject matter, and we organized our partners accordingly, according to their skills and what their organizations worked in. But we wanted to keep it simple. And like I said earlier, many of our organizations are smaller faith or community-based outfits. They're minimal resources. These are not organizations that are going to pull people out of rubble, but they might be, great at distributing food and water, or great at looking at the spiritual needs of those affected. And this exercise is really built to serve them as much as it was built to serve our partners at the Red Cross or Team Rubicon or anybody else. And we made it personal. And like I said, we have incredible diversity in our county. We wanted to weave these linguistic and cultural aspects of our county into our exercise, and make it unique to LA County. Next slide, please. So overall, we had a fantastic event and it was a great success, as Margaret described, but there were some lessons that we did learn from this. One is that less is more. There's no need to rush your participants. You want to keep them engaged on the subject matter. You want to give them time to think things over, right? Oftentimes in a disaster, you don't need to make split-second decisions within a 1-minute time frame. You want to give people time to think, to talk, and not kind of overwhelm them with too much material in a 2-hour time frame. We want to also make sure participants know their roles, making sure that observers know that they're there to observe, less to engage with the participants, so on and so forth. We should also, for future, don't want our participants to get caught in the weeds, if you will. We want to have facilitators steer players away from tangents. Of course, in a disaster scenario, there's an entire universe of things that people will think about, and that's fantastic. But again, in an exercise, we want them hyper-focused, if you will, on the subject at hand and focusing on kind of key issues that we're practicing for. We learned a lot about our smaller partners and the immeasurable strength that they have as organizations, and their amazing ability for creativity and to see things on a neighborhood level, at a community level that often our larger partners might not see. And also, we just have to do this more often. It was something that a moment of transparency with this group. Our VOED is coming off a period of dormancy where we did not have funding to maintain a program director. And as a result, we didn't necessarily have the bandwidth to organize these kinds of events. But we realized, so it had been 4 years since we had last done an exercise like this. And as I said, this is just something we need to do on an annual basis. Preparation is a big part of what goes into emergency management, and we want to keep this going. We want to keep our momentum with this. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, was there a slide before that? Right. So just tips for a great exercise, like I said, keeping it small, more isn't always better, making it simple, and very much in the same vein of what I just said. Don't sweat variables, keep your participants focused on an objective. Don't leave too much room for overthinking things. You want to leverage the advantages of your networks. So whether that's on an individual level or an organizational level, understand that different people have different skills and plug them in accordingly where they're most likely to succeed. Understand that you're the expert. You are the world's foremost expert on your own audience. And nobody's in a better position to understand your network better than you. So have confidence in yourself that you know your community and you'll know how they'll approach delivering solutions. And follow up. The exercise, I would say half of what we learned about this exercise happened in the design of the exercise and during the exercise itself. The other half is going to be revealed to us once we collect back survey forms, which have since gone out, and develop an after action report to understand, okay, what is it we did that worked? Where are our gaps? And how do we improve upon our mechanisms for disaster response? Next slide, please. Also, define what it is you're seeking to exercise. And one thing we got a great kind of template was the SMART guidelines for an exercise. So making sure your objectives are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. really not only looking at objectives through a qualitative lens, but also through a quantitative one. And making sure kind of that you know what you're exercising before you're going into this exercise, and what it is you're seeking. Next slide, please. And finally, go for it. As kind of really to echo a point I made earlier, we're all busy all the time. I've yet to ask somebody or hear the response of when I ask somebody, how are you doing? And for one of my colleagues to say, oh, I'm doing all right, not too much going on here. Everybody is busy all the time, as am I. But in order to really focus on, right, really put an emphasis on preparation, we need to put the time away to dedicate ourselves to disaster preparedness exercises. And your first template will be your first exercise rather will be a template for future ones. And it will really give you the momentum to go on and keep practicing year after year with your network, with your community, with different organizations and agencies you're involved with. Next slide, please. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
We do. So is there a link? Let's see, this one question is this for you. There's a question about, does anybody have a link to emergency supplies and necessities, like an all around bug out bag? It would be great to have a certain platform that we can all start with the preparation and dedicate a certain portion of our daily. There are many emergency supply vendors. People could put their favorite in the chat, links to their favorite organizations. Would be a great way of handling that. Please be putting your questions into the chat. Anyone have questions for Yosef about his presentation?
And one thing I really do want to stress, Mark, is that the Great Shakeout provided a really, really excellent template for us to focus on emergency preparedness, specifically regards to earthquakes. But of course, my network doesn't only focus on earthquakes. We look at disasters and emergencies of every kind, not only earthquakes and wildfires and so on and so forth, but also COVID certainly we saw as an emergency. We see the issue of homelessness in LA County as an emergency, issues of food insecurity as an emergency. And the Great Shakeout not only allowed us to kind of practice, okay, what are we going to do in an earthquake scenario, but also allowed us to see, okay, how are organizations thinking about emergencies? How are they responding? What resources do they have? And as a result, we have a better understanding of how we look at other emergencies as well, not just including natural disasters. So it was a really fantastic template for us in learning about ourselves and really improving our response mechanisms.
There's also a question from Ted Horton-Billard. If for the VOAD, what type of legal services do they offer?
Sure. So we have partners. I just want to make one thing clear about that. The VOAD itself is a coordination arm. The organizations we're involved with that are a part of our VOAD are the ones who are really the resource providers. And we have organizations associated with us that assist folks with, let's say, filling out FEMA, right? FEMA, like appealing FEMA aid, right? If they don't get it after a disaster, they might assist folks with working with insurance companies, right? On any legal issues that might come up there. Really a gamut of things. Of course, we live in, unfortunately, a very litigious society. And when it comes to disasters, right, folks, this is a need that oftentimes folks have, you know, so they're there essentially to be advisors, and right, even defend them if needed.
Okay. Turning back to our chairs, we should move on.
Yeah, so thank you, Yosef. That was a great presentation and covering that. And just one question, do you think that you would have any materials that might be available to some of our participants in helping them plan their drill? Would anything be available to them, like Sitman or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I failed to do in this presentation when drawing it up was I forgot to include my email address. So I'll put that in the chat. I encourage any and all organizations that have listened to this, and really just if anybody needs an idea and getting started and what kinds of materials they need to host an event like this, I can be in touch with you via email and provide any materials or advice if needed to do that. So thank you, Margaret. That's a great question.
Thank you, Yosef. So we're going to kind of backtrack a little and talk about our Earthquake Country Alliance. And so to let you know that we do have our Southern California Coordinating Committee. We are comprised of different committees that you can see here. I'm not going to go through all of them. But this is a great opportunity to become more involved with Earthquake Country Alliance. We are always looking for great coordinators, we have people from different organizations, as you can see, individuals that are very interested in what we do here. And so we're always looking for people that might want to join. So we welcome you that any time that you want to join any of these committees to contact, I think it's Gabby Noriega, and we'll put her email in the site also to let us know that you'd be interested in joining one of these, joining our SoCal Coordinating Committee. And so with that, we are going to go to our Quakes break. And so this is something we've now added to let you know about what's happening about earthquakes in Southern California. And so this is for the period of August through October. Next slide. So this has actually been a very refreshing, quiet quarter. We've had about 6,000 earthquakes versus last year. Last quarter, we had about 7,800 earthquakes, but this quarter we had about 6,000. And only a few have been over a magnitude 3.5 that might have been felt. So this slide represents some of those events that you might have felt throughout Southern California. We had a magnitude 4.1 earthquake in Alancha, which was actually part of the Ridgecrest aftershock sequence, which is still going on. This is as a result, of course, the July 2019 7.0 earthquake in Ridgecrest, and that was a magnitude 4.0. A magnitude 3.6 earthquake in Thousand Oaks, as some of you may have felt, that generated over 2,000 did you feel it reports throughout Southern California, and had a few aftershocks with that one. Next slide. So looking at some of the events that have actually happened in the urban area. So this quarter, we had an event, of course, the magnitude 3.6 earthquake in East Los Angeles was kind of dubbed the Maywood earthquake because it was close to that city. The epicenter was close to that city. It was an event that was felt with an estimated intensity shaking of a level 4 on the modified Mercalli scale of intensity. A level 4 is relatively strong shaking at the epicenter, and of course, as the waves travel outward, they diminish in strength with that. So it was a level 4 intensity of shaking near the city of Maywood. Next slide. The next earthquake that, of course, we felt in the basin was a magnitude 4.3 in Carson. This was more felt, it got more attention, actually was felt throughout the metropolitan area with a peak estimated intensity of a level 4 shaking at the epicenter, which was in Carson. It was a lateral slip event on the LA basin and generated 10,300 felt reports on it. Did you feel it? It also provided a shake alert to the two people in the city of Carson, Long Beach, Inglewood, and Los Angeles, because in those areas it did trigger the Shake Alert Earthquake Early Warning if you were running one of the apps, because they did have an intensity 3 or higher level of shaking in those areas. Next slide. Okay, so these are some of the resources. So after an earthquake, you can go to our website at Southern California Seismic Network, which is scSN.org. We will then post anything about any recent earthquakes that have occurred. We also send out a Twitter, so you can sign up for that as well. You can also sign up for earthquake notification. That is not earthquake early warning. The earthquake has happened and is information that comes out after the earthquake, but you can sign up with that at USGS or through the SCSN website. I talked about Did You Feel It? And Did You Feel It is a survey that you can fill out to tell us what you felt in an earthquake. This is actually then you become part of the science of that earthquake. So scientists at USGS and Caltech use that information to double check what we are looking at as we estimate the intensity of shaking. Actually, back in the 1950s, Dr. Richter used to send out postcards to people asking them what they felt in an earthquake. But now it's all digital, so you can go to Did You Feel and be part of that science. Also, remember to download any of the Shake Alert apps, MyShake, Quake Alert USA, SD Emergency, or if you have an Android phone, we'll get it automatically through Google and then through WIA. So that is our Quake Break report, and we hope we stay quiet for the next quarter. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Are there any questions? I'm just looking. I don't think we do have any. Heidi, if you want to continue.
Thank you very much, Margaret. So moving on, we are now going to be talking about our mini awards and some of our new multilingual resources and a little bit of a ShakeOut summary. So I am going to turn it over to Mark Benthien, who is our fearless leader as Executive Director of ECA and the Director of Communication, Education, and Outreach for the Southern California Earthquake Center. Mark?
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, hi everyone. So as was said, we have a lot of new things for you to be using in your activities. Little overview of ShakeOut and what you can still be doing there, and also our 2022 mini awards program. As mentioned earlier, Earthquake Country Alliance is a statewide organization. We really hope that if you are not a member, that you do join us. Very simple link right there, earthquakecountry.org/join. You'll get on the email list for the statewide, but also for SoCal or whatever region you're interested in, so that you'll get notifications when recordings of workshops and webinars are online, or of course when they are announced, so that you can register and join, and about all of our activities. And there have been a number of the updates in the last couple months. So if you haven't been getting those, make sure that you will by joining us. ECA coordinates activities in the regions, like here in ECA SoCal, but also on the Central Coast, the Bay Area, and Redwood Coast through partnerships in each region. Overall, we develop a variety of messaging resources and activities throughout the year, and we support Tsunami Preparedness Week, coming up March 21st to the 25th in 2022. And we created originally and still coordinate Great California ShakeOut, which was the International ShakeOut Day on October 21st this year, and is coming up next year, October 20th in 2022. And a key aspect of how a lot of the materials get created is by people with expertise in different sectors. And so we want to make sure that you are aware of the statewide groups that you can be a part of in the public sector, business, accessibility, resources for people with disabilities and access and functional needs, also nonprofit and faith-based groups and organizations, healthcare, higher education, pre-K through 12 education, and our epicenters committee for museums, parks, libraries, and other places that people go to learn, and many have earthquake exhibits. We also have bureaus that are coordinating kind of the outreach of all of that material, including our events bureau, and especially key here is if you would like to request a speaker, you can have them complete or you can complete this form at earthquakecountry.org/events. If you've been asked to be a speaker and would like a simple way of getting information organized for you in advance of your presentation of all the details, you can also have people use that form and we'll send you what they submit. So it's a really nice way of not having to have a lot of back and forth emails. We also have bureaus that focus on recruitment in our major activities of ShakeOut and Tsunami Preparedness Week. And we're really looking for city and county partners and others in key sectors who are really excited and interested in having as many people participate as possible. And then if you're a public information officer or otherwise within media or have interest in media relations, we have a statewide media bureau too. Each of these have local coordinators in each region that come together on a statewide basis. Recently, coming up, we have a few webinars and workshops. So next week, we have our 4th community engagement webinar featuring presentations by the Martinez Area CERT out of the Bay Area and healthcare partners in Southern California. Both are going to be talking about activities they did with mini awards they received this year. One focused on mitigation, on securing and fastening items so they wouldn't fall, and the other on educational materials that they used in clinics for children. So you can find out about that and register for that webinar, which is on Tuesday from 1 to 2, next Tuesday at earthquakecountry.org/community. And then if you're interested in the ECA Bay Area activity, maybe you're joined us from the Bay Area, or you're welcome to participate next Wednesday in a very similar workshop as today, but for the Bay Area at earthquakecountry.org/Bay Area. Recently, we've had 3 other webinars that you might be interested in. Our Accessibility Committee hosted in partnership with the Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network, webinar on effective communication before, during, and after an earthquake or other emergency, focused on communicating largely with people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but really overall concepts. Our 3rd webinar in the community engagements series was about the City of San Francisco's Neighborhood Empowerment Network. You can see that also at earthquakecountry.org/community. And then we also had a webinar for those museums and parks and libraries or other free choice learning environments. You can find that at earthquakecountry.org/epicenter. So those are also linked in various ways from the homepage, and we hope that you find these resources useful. So all these recent ones are there because the recording is indeed at those locations. Just point that out. We have been working on a number of materials in multiple languages to complement what we already have in websites. Of course, the earthquakecountry.org website is in English, but terremotos.org is the Spanish equivalent site. And we also have ShakeOut in Spanish at shakeout.org/Espanol. However, we have now created quite a few more resources, 12 documents total, all now in 15 languages, which you can all find out and download in each of those languages at earthquakecountry.org/languages. They are the top 15 languages in the state, including English. They're translated into 14 languages, but now 15 total. So these include materials for ShakeOut, for basic earthquake safety in different situations. The postcard type graphic you see on the left, what to do if you're able to drop, cover, hold on, or if you use a cane, wheelchair, or walker, and how you adapt your response to be safe. We also have a new document called Your Action Plan for the 7 Steps to Earthquake Safety. And this is an 8-page workbook, eventually to be printed as a quad fold document. You can download this though and print this on regular paper now and also use it. So what I've done here is put different languages for each step. Of course, it comes in one language per document, as you'll find there. So in each of those different languages. So it's meant to be a workbook for each of the steps. If you're in a presentation, if you're delivering a presentation where you're talking about the 7 steps, a great way of organizing these types of discussions so people can kind of be filling out certain aspects they need to be focusing on. And I'm going to pause that. Little earthquake happening, of course. If an earthquake were to happen right now, we might have gotten an alert through MyShake and other means of the Shake alert system. But of course you would, this is a little enlarged version of the graphics I was just showing. Not just new languages, but new accessible aspects in terms of color contrast that we're showing compared to our previous version of these images. ShakeOut, of course, puts all that into practice. And this year, you can see kind of we've been rebounding towards where we had been in our banner year, our peak participation year of 2019. Still not wholly back there, but hopefully in 2022, we will have put the pandemic behind us, at least in terms of preventing us from doing the drills like we used to. And people are learning how to do drills via video conferencing and other aspects. And I just want to point out, you can still register, please do. If you haven't had a drill, still time. You don't have to do your drill any year. You don't have to do your drill on ShakeOut day itself. Many don't, may have it on other days. And maybe even when you're considering social distancing and all these factors, having it on alternate dates, maybe dividing your group into multiple groups and having drills differently, that is all possible. So I want to encourage, if you have not done your own drill, either at home, maybe you did it in the workplace, if you haven't done a drill at home, or vice versa, you can, or maybe with your community organizations or others, you can still register your participation for 2021. We do have drill leader presentations at shakeout.org/COVID-19 for how to organize both online drills, but these also can be used in person. Really make it simple. It does have the sound effects so you can play at the time you drill, but it has introductory material and some questions for afterwards. And they're very short, so it doesn't take a long time. We do now have a presentation in Spanish there also at shakeout.org/Espanol/COVID-19. So I just want to pause for any questions on anything I've shared so far about the ECA materials, and I'm going to continue in a moment with talking about our mini awards. Is there any questions so far on the multi-language materials, ShakeOut, anything that I've shared? Don't be shy. If you have a question, you can't figure out how to get to the chat, you can also right now just say something. All right, very good. So I'm going to continue now to provide an overview of our mini awards. The 2022 ECA Mini Awards program is going to be available soon for you to submit your applications. The purpose is to provide materials for ECA member projects that improve earthquake resilience by promoting mitigation, awareness, and preparedness, and really to multiply the impact of your programs. We actually make purchases of $500 to $1,000 each of items that you can use to secure your own space, to secure other people's spaces in terms of fastening furniture, TVs, bookshelves, and other items, and also for educational purposes. The only activity that is not going to be supported this year is anything to do with general emergency supplies or supply kits, but we will have some predefined packages that you can select from, but you can also customize them or propose other items. There are suggestions that give you an idea of what types of things make up about a $500 to $1,000 package. We'll work with you on that customization. So for example, we have packages for securing a school, not maybe the entire school, but key aspects of a school, a community organization, or a small workplace, and different levels of materials for securing 10 living spaces, 10 homes, perhaps more items that you would have in those kits. Also, a smaller number of items, but for more homes, what we call residential home fastening starter kits. As you see in this image over there, it includes a television strap, a furniture strap, and a cabinet latch. So it's certainly not securing your entire space, but giving you a sense of the types of things you can get. And you can imagine that even if you worked with your neighborhood and had everybody use these materials, that's one less television, or let's say 20 fewer televisions, 20 fewer bookshelves, and 20 fewer cabinets that won't fall and cause damage or injury in an earthquake. So it really could make a difference in many ways. We have education options too, including Map Your Neighborhood shingle workbooks that many communities have used to coordinate that program. We provide the printing for those. Also the rocket rules materials. There's earthquake adventure storybooks, and now an extended set of adventure rockets earthquake adventure activity books that are coloring books and crossword puzzles and many other activities in those, and those are available in many languages. We're also going to have a package of 7 steps to earthquake safety signage that you can use for fairs and events to organize tables and vendors and make that really easy for you to have a great event. Just showing some of those rocket rules materials, and they even had some updated materials for ShakeOut Day. Both were on October 21st, and they have one for where you can fill in the date if you're still going to have your drill. So the timeline is may evolve a little bit, but we're looking to have the application open by the end of next week. The deadline in early December. We'll be reviewing those applications as they're coming in, and with the plan to notify everybody by December 17th if you've been accepted or not. And then there may be some questions and some back and forth about what you're clarifying what you're going to do and what are going to be in your final packages. And so we want to by January 11th have all that worked out so that we can get your materials to you in by mid-February, maybe earlier if you're getting one of our basic packages. We'll get those going as fast as possible. All projects will need to be completed by the end of May, along with the survey, and then you'll do a presentation about your project, very short, couple minutes, just highlighting what you did in your project if you're a 2022 recipient at the workshops in August. So one thing I wanted to point out is that if you have any questions or thoughts about what you want to do as far as part of this a ECA mini award project, please email those now to info@earthquakecountry.org. That is stated on the website that was just posted into the chat as well. We want to give you feedback on your proposals and assist you, make sure you have a compelling proposal. The proposals are very simple, but we want to make sure that you fill them out completely and that what you're proposing is something that is a qualified project. It will be able to be supported. So again, email us any questions or really what you're thinking about suggesting. And I really encourage all of you to consider submitting an application, all of you, whether it's for your own organization or for a community group that you're a part of or to help your neighbors. We've had some challenge with COVID about people being able to help secure other people's houses, but hopefully now that we're kind of moving beyond that, and there's ways that we can do that. So please do consider, email us any questions. And do you have any questions now? A reminder, put your questions into the chat. The good question from Mark: how many mini awards are available this year and what % actually win? Okay, so we should be able to support something like 20 statewide. I believe we have something like 10 or 11 allocated for SoCal. And the percentage really depends on how many people apply. They need to be good applications. We won't just fund all of them because they came in, they need to meet all the criteria. But that's why we want to really provide a lot of extra support this year to make sure that what you submit isn't going to be disqualified because of some simple aspect of the criteria that you may have missed. And the project proposal is actually submitted through the website. So it's just a series of questions, like your contact information and some questions about what you're proposing. Again, we're talking, not pages and pages. It's maybe no more than about 10 questions, and your a couple sentences or so each, as long as you can really describe what you're going to be doing. This is a simple process, but do email us in advance or during the program. We will also be reviewing your application, and if we have any questions for you, we'll be reaching out to make sure that by the time of the application deadline that you are fully qualified and there's no issues that will disqualify you at that point. So don't wait till the end. Don't wait till the December 10th, the deadline. Do get these in earlier. All right. And now there's a question of, are there updated maps or lists of unreinforced masonry building or other high-risk sites? There are versions of that from different organizations and different types. This is specifically unreinforced masonry. But that's going to be kind of city by city. So I'm not sure which city you're referring to, David, in that question. But what I would ask you to do, if you can't find that, is email, as on the screen, info@earthquakecountry.org, and we'll connect you with the people that can answer that question. All righty. Is there detailed info about the mini awards and entry process? Yes, the link was shared earlier. It's being updated now as we add additional packages and update the criteria. But earthquakecountry.org/mini awards is where that will be once it's available. That will be an email going out as well. So be sure to join the Earthquake Country Alliance so that you'll get that email, earthquakecountry.org/join. There's that link again. Okay. I like it. I had a little bit out of order here, but here's that get a head start. Email what you're thinking about doing and email info@shakeout.org. Next up, we're going to turn back to our chairs for the introduction of our next speaker.
Hello, this is Alan Hanson again. So I'm happy to introduce Annde Ewertsen. She's with both the California Earthquake Authority as well as Earthquake Brace and Bolt. So they've come up with a new program they're releasing now, and it also has a feature where they're going to be helping out underserved communities. So Annde, if you could take it over, please do so.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here again, talking briefly about the Earthquake Brace and Bolt program. Next slide, please. So we look at vulnerabilities to older homes, primarily homes that were built before 1940, but include homes that were built before 1980. There are a number of known vulnerabilities to earthquake damage. Next slide, please. These are the 4 vulnerabilities, specifically the cripple wall vulnerability, which is the vulnerability we'll be talking about for the Earthquake Brace Bolt program. Living space over garage. I'll be excited to announce that there's a new program for that as well. The hillside house and the chimney. These are 2 vulnerabilities that our programs don't address at this point in time. Next slide, please. So what does the Earthquake Brace and Bolt program do? It retrofits homes, particularly the cripple wall vulnerability. It does not earthquake proof a house, but it makes it much less likely to be damaged during an earthquake and to allow it to remain habitable after an earthquake. Next slide, please. So the Earthquake Brace and Bolt program provides grants of up to $3,000 to homeowners to strengthen pre-1940 houses against earthquake damage. Currently, the program requires that the homeowner live in the qualifying house. We are currently located in 395 zip codes throughout the state of California. Houses are constructed again pre-1980. They must have a raised foundation, and they must sit on level ground or a low slope. That means that they don't have cripple walls higher than 7 feet. And if they have cripple walls in the crawl space, those will be retrofitted as well. The retrofit work must be done in compliance with the Chapter A3 retrofit code, and the permit must state that requirement. Next slide, please. So we're excited to announce that we have completed more than 15,000 retrofits in the state of California. As a matter of fact, we're getting close to having completed 16,000. And we currently have about 1,400 people that are in process as well. Next slide, please. We have opened a new program. Registration began October 27th. It'll go through December 1st. That program is for earthquake brace and bolt, the program we were just talking about in terms of cripple walls. But we are very excited to announce a new supplemental grant for income eligible households. Those are households that have funds or incomes that are $72,080 or less. That is based on the 80% of the statewide median income. And with these new supplemental grants, we should be able to cover close to 100% of the funds for those households. We estimate there will be about 400 grants available. Next slide, please. So here's a quick video. We can show you exactly how we retrofit those houses. We can move on. That's okay.
In an earthquake, what will happen to an older home designed and built before codes were adopted throughout the state, an earthquake can actually shake your house off of its foundation. And if it topples like this, it's the kind of damage where you and your family may be out for months to even years. And so what we do with our earthquake brace and bolt retrofit is we go under the house and anchor the wood to the concrete foundation and put stiff plywood around the crawl space. And that keeps the house on its foundation in an earthquake.
So that was just a quick video done by Jalil Mathey, our Chief Mitigation Officer. This shows you the type of house that we are targeting for our earthquake brace and bolt program. This is a house that sits on top of a small foundation. And as you can see, the ingress and egress here was significantly damaged. I believe this house was eventually red tagged because it did fall off its foundation. Next slide. Some more evidence of that type of damage. Next slide. These are all from Napa earthquake in 2014. And here's what the retrofit looks like. We bolt the house to the foundation. So here's some anchor bolts. Next slide. And if there are cripple walls, those cripple walls must be braced. So they, you'll see the bracing there, the wood, and then you have little vent holes to allow for ventilation. And then there are also foundation plates if you can't do an anchor bolt. Next slide, please. So as I said previously, we have open registration right now, October 27th to December 1st. We have about 1,700 grants that are available. They'll be in 395 zip codes. We have that supplemental grant that I spoke about a moment ago, 400 or so of those available as well. And for the first time, we have actually ads running in Spanish and Chinese, and we are seeing an uptick in people coming to us needing translation services. So we know those ads are working. And then, as I mentioned, we will have a new program hopefully available at the end of the first quarter for earthquake soft stories. So those are the living space over garage for single family residences. And that is the end of my presentation, I believe. If you have questions, You can go to info@earthquakebracebolt.com or visit our website. It has a tremendous amount of information, earthquakebracebolt.com. And if you want to get the word out to any of your constituents, we have another website, ebbtools.com, in which we have social media posts and all sorts of things that you could post on your websites to get the word out about registration as well. I believe there were a couple questions. Happy to provide slides, Margaret, if you're interested.
And that would be great as we go along and talk about this. And I'll also share that my neighbor got approved yesterday, and so she's moving forward.
That's exciting. We're glad to hear that. We also think that we will be getting substantial funds coming soon from our myriad of HMGP grants. And so we will likely be opening another registration, maybe first or second quarter, for more EBB retrofits as well. Was
And
there
we have
another
a question from Lance? Is brace and bolt retrofit program available for landlords of small rental cottage complexes?
So that's a great question. We right now are only owner occupied. So if you have a small 1 to 4 unit and you live in one of those units, then yes, you would qualify. If you don't live in one of those units, unfortunately at this time, we do not have that program available, but we are looking to open it up, hopefully sometime in the near future, to landlords as well. But right now it is an owner occupied program only.
Then also, is there a program for soft story condos built before 1980?
So we do have a program that will be opening up at the end of the first quarter, maybe second quarter. It will be for single family residences, but if it's a 1 to 4 unit condo, then it could very well qualify.
And are the low income grants available for homes outside of the listed zip codes?
No, our program is only available in those 395 zip codes right now. You have to have been eligible and accepted into the program for one of the main grants. And then if you have indicated that you are low income and you were randomly selected, then you would be given the opportunity to verify your income and become eligible for one of those 400 grants. There is nothing in the San Diego area yet, but as we move into more zip codes, when we get additional funding, we will be there at some point. You can sign up on the earthquakebracebolt.com website to get an email to learn more about when we're coming to different areas. Did I see any other questions that I missed? Sorry.
Andy, you mentioned in your slide something about apartments over a garage.
So soft story houses, also known as living space over garage or single family residences, that is a different vulnerability. That's the new vulnerability that we just recently received a grant for, that will be opening up hopefully the end of the first quarter, beginning of second quarter. So that's the typical house where you have the garage tuck under parking and you'll have a room or the entire house over that garage. That is a weak spot on the house that requires a specific type of retrofit, and that's the new program that we will be opening.
And is there a minimum amount of crawl space needed for brace and bolt? How many inches?
There is not a minimum space. I will tell you, I've seen some pretty small crawl spaces, anywhere from, I think, 12 inches. So you have to have somebody be able to crawl in there. But basically, if you have a crawl space under your house, they should be able to get it retrofitted.
Excellent. Great questions. Thank you, Andy, for being with us again. And it's such an opportunity. So definitely look up this, not only for yourself, but as Margaret mentioned, it's really important your neighbors do this work. It's important for them, but it's important for your whole community, including you, that their house doesn't fall off its foundation, break gas lines and all the things that might happen that could affect your house too. So I have personally taken some flyers and walked the street and give them out to people because I'm fortunate to be in one of these zip codes, and you know, they think I'm selling something, but I really say, no, I'm actually, you can get a lot of money for if you apply to this. So, and what's the, one last question, is it still being worked on in terms of the tax consequences?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, it is. And it is connected right now to one of the bills that are moving through. And so we're really hopeful that this year it will get passed. Because the main grants that we've been providing for the last several years are FEMA funded through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, there is no tax consequence to those. However, this supplemental grant, unfortunately, is being funded. Well, it's not unfortunate it's being funded, but it's unfortunate it's being funded through the California Residential Mitigation Fund and the Loss Mitigation Fund, which means it's not part of the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program and therefore does have a tax consequence. So we're hoping that the legislation passes. It is in the legislation right now. We're hoping it won't be struck. And so if that is the case, then all of our grants moving forward will not have any tax implication, and that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
So that won't be retroactive, huh, Andy?
It won't be retroactive, but it will be retroactive to this year. So if it gets passed in this year, anybody who receives a grant that had any tax consequences in 2021, and there aren't very many, but it would be retroactive to this year, but not previous years.
And final question before we move on, any how-to videos that show how to check your home to see if it needs this type of retrofitting?
We do have some interesting things that are available for you to look at online at earthquakebracebolt.com or California Residential Mitigation Program.com, which is such a long name. Those two have some videos, and they also have some photographs. But basically, if your home has a crawl space, and you know it has a crawl space by a couple different visual clues. One is if you have more than a couple steps up to your front door, more than 3 usually, then there's a good chance that you have a crawl space. If you walk around your house and you see vent holes along the bottom, near the bottom of towards the foundation, then you have a crawl space. If you have an access door around someplace on the exterior of your house, then you have a crawl space. Access doors may also be located in a closet inside of your house as well. But if you have those things, then you likely have a crawl space. And if you have a crawl space, there's a very, very good chance that it's never been retrofitted and needs some attention.
Thank you, Andy. One last question, because it has been mentioned a couple of times. Is there any programs for mobile homes?
We do not currently have a program for mobile homes.
All righty. On the, but there is information about what is needed for mobile homes, I believe on, is that on the Strengthen Your House website too?
I believe it is, yes. I believe we have the Strengthen Your House, Your Home website, which is the California Residential Mitigation Program website. And it does have information about that.
Excellent. Okay, so thank you, Andy. And next we'll turn it back to our chairs.
Thank you.
Well, hi, everyone. This is Heidi Rosofsky again. One of the things that we like to do is have an open discussion and an opportunity for all of you to talk with one another. And to that end, we have several questions that are available for discussion. And Mark, you're going to be putting people in groups into the breakout session?
It's a pretty small group now. I would think that maybe we just stay all together at this time.
Okay. So what we'd like feedback on is, the first one is, how did you adapt your ShakeOut drill to accommodate continued COVID-19 considerations? Anybody have any anything that they did specifically, or any concerns that they may have had that they'd like to see addressed?
And Heidi, let me just say that one way you can interact in this part is look for the reactions menu on your menu bar and click the raise hand, and then we can call on you. You can actually speak rather than have to type your questions or type your answers. There is one response from Rick Shermer. We provided emergency communications through local repeaters and reporting. So that's amateur radio. Rick, do you want to say, actually say anything more by voice about that? Unmute yourself.
All right, sorry about that. I forget where my unmute button is sometimes. My name is Rick Shermer. I work with the Aries group here in West Riverside County. I also participate in the local Riverside City CERT program. And then also I do some side work that kind of tied in with the Keller Peak repeater, which has a huge footprint. It ranges from south of the border all the way up to as far as Ridgecrest in the high desert. And so what we did was we provided a 72 hours after net, because we figured that on Saturday there would be more people available to participate in a shakeout drill. So this was a follow-up to the earthquake that happened on 10/21 at 10/21. We provided an opportunity for other amateur radio operators to drop down to a resource net, because the scenario said that we would need more amateur radio operators to defray, the crew that had been holding down the fort for 72 hours. And since some places were still, uncovering from the dust that settled, we allowed those radio amateur operators to drop down to 4 different repeaters, sign in there in an attempt to show them how resources would be collected and then divvied out as necessary in 4 different regions. And then we also partnered with the Catalina repeater that covers mostly the coastline from Catalina. What you can see from Catalina is what they cover. And they gave us statistics on how their check-ins were going, what assets they have, which people were on high ground, who could report about tsunami activity, who would be available in the future for such activities. And I think we're going to open this up to continued coordinations with other repeaters that we provide information just by virtue of people talking through their scenarios, asking the right questions so that everyone can keep a pulse of what's going on via the amateur radio networking that we're possible or capable of. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Rick.
Question from Christopher, who's raised his hand.
Go ahead.
Yes, greetings. Thanks for having me. This is my first Earthquake Country Alliance meeting, so I'm grateful to be involved and engaged. I work at a hospital, pediatric hospital, Chalk Children's down in Orange County. And we have been heavily taxed in terms of our census and low staffing. So we had to get a little creative, and basically we put out some personal safety information, personal preparedness information about a week prior. I just recently took over our emergency management program here, so I tried to get a little bit more engagement. So we had purchased a few preparedness bags, some life straws and crush lights, et cetera, et cetera. But what we had was at 10/21, we tested our mass communication process to message out to our staff charge nurses to participate. My request of our staff was to take pictures of them dropping, covering, and holding on. We had to make this incredibly brief, so they were able to respond appropriately and then submit their photos to us to put them into a raffle drawing. This was, the messaging went out on a Monday, and Thursday we had our drill. We were pretty surprised to receive approximately 100 participants with such short notice and with our messaging. But one of the key takeaways was that, one, we had some folks that did know how to respond, But my emergency department also did a survey of the staff that were participating, as well as others in the department, to test and check on levels of preparedness at home, family planning, family plans, excuse me, about the family planning. This was more about their family preparedness at home. And to see as to how we can start to tailor our education to our staff. This was a huge benefit, and with a minimal amount of interruption in our process, but we were able to glean quite a bit of information, and I look forward to keeping this moving forward, working through some of the lessons learned. Again, and I think most of that is maybe scant to no preparedness on their part. But this was a great opportunity. And having you folks provide the tools to us through the ShakeOut operation was an incredible benefit to me as an emergency manager, having to write up this exercise. So all of the legwork that was done prior, I just wanted to say thank you to all, for anyone that has contributed to that. I was able to use this to our advantage, and I just wanted to let you know, and especially in this season of Thanksgiving, that I'm grateful for all of the work that you did to make my life easier. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead, in the interest of time, to open it up to any of the other questions that are here. Share some of the lessons learned from your ShakeOut event, which actually what we've been hearing. Any ideas that have been inspired by today's presentations. And then also, particularly in the chat, if you want to drop in what kinds of topics, what kinds of ideas or information are you looking for that we can try to incorporate in the workshops going on. So if you will kind of drop that one, at least in the chat, and let's open it up to the other questions. Anybody have anything they'd like to comment on the other questions we have?
Heidi, related to the last topic, there is a question from Mark Legassi. Are there plans to go back to face-to-face ECA workshops instead of or in conjunction with virtual meetings like this one? Difficult to network via virtual.
The answer to that is yes, we're hoping to be able to go back to face-to-face workshops, but as the pandemic allows. And as to whether or not it may be a mixed situation, yes, there might be times that we will be doing some of the workshops and some of the webinars and things that we do online. But our goal is to get back to the face-to-face where we have an opportunity to interact with one another, network with one another. That's always been a big part of what ECA is all about, is connecting people with similar issues and similar problems together to force multiply, the information and the ability to overcome those issues as well. Thanks for a great question. Anybody else?
Heidi, I think along those lines, likely to be able to have in-person places at large spaces that we could be a bit distanced, depending on how the COVID is going, once we come to our next meeting, which will be in February. So maybe if you have a great place that could hold a lot of people that's separated, you can let us know.
Yeah, we do like to have these, typically before COVID, we had these meetings in different parts of Southern California. So not just in a metropolitan area. So anybody from outlying areas as well, we like to have meetings in different places so that people can always come to at least one meeting a year.
Have there been any ideas inspired by today's presentation or things that made you say, I have to look into that? Mark, you've got the ability to see the raised hands. I don't.
We have no raised hands right now, but there was a question from Michael to Christopher, who spoke before. Would it be nice to know certain details on equipment to buy initially?
Is that in reference to
AM radio system?
Amateur radio?
Yeah.
We currently, we have a few antenna on our roof. We have a 440, 2-meter 440. I know we have I think a 220 up there as well. We have been using our handhelds. We, in this particular location, I think are a little behind the 8 ball in terms of our ham radio equipment. We have an organization down here called OC Heart that have been actively engaged. I chair the Healthcare Coalition of Orange County Hospital Advisory Committee, and we have engaged our stakeholders from OC Heart to come out and do site evaluations for our facilities. I know our antenna are working. We've been using handhelds up to this point. As I mentioned, I just recently took over our EM program. We've been doing a lot more radio-based communications throughout our county and with other organizations. But I can see I am a ham radio operator. My call sign is Whiskey Whiskey 6 Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. But we are working on upgrading our process to ensure that we do have a base station basically here, create a ham shack, if you will, somewhere on our hospital campus. We're currently doing some construction work, so this is an ideal opportunity. In terms of equipment, I tell you, I've been using a Kenwood handheld. It was a multi-band radio that has been incredibly easy to use and works very well, stays charged well, get plenty of radio life out of it.
Christopher, is there a website that you can put a link into the chat, like it's a beginner amateur radio site for people who are interested in getting started?
Sure, I would imagine that any of our ham groups would be more than willing to accept folks to come on in. I know I heard the gentleman from Aries on the line as well. Down here in Orange County, that's a little bit of a different ballgame, but I'm happy to see if I can find the individual's contact information to connect you with. I'm happy to do so. Or is there someone I can send this to that may be able to put that information out if I can't dig it up before the end of the meeting?
Thank you, Christopher. A couple other comments from the chat. You can all look there. One of I have encouraging to take the CERT and the CERT resident class. I guess it's a beginner version. So you can look for that. And also comments about continuing to have a Zoom option, even if we're in person. I think we do want to try to make that work logistically. And there is a link that's just put in there for amateur radio, beginner amateur radio, www.arrl.org. Margaret, you have your hand raised.
I think this actually has brought up a good topic that many people that I talk to are very interested in doing ham radio, coming to a class. Actually, here in Pasadena, we've been looking for somebody to come and conduct a class. It is a one-day class. If I can pass it, anybody can pass it and become a ham radio operator, but we need to find those instructors. So if anybody has any information on where to find current instructors to come and do a class, that'd be greatly appreciated. And maybe this is something we might be able to host through ECA as well.
I want to point out, and if we could put the link to the survey in the chat, please, that if you haven't already done so by seeing it on the screen, please do complete the survey. We'll put it so you can click it. It's very brief, and if you've attended one of our workshops, it's a similar survey, but we do want your input for each one. And that on the survey that you can also make suggestions for future topics. And you can indicate if you're interested in joining any of our leadership groups within ECA, statewide or regional, and give us feedback for how today's workshop went. And so that link will be there in a moment. Any other questions or comments or responses to the questions that are on the screen?
This is Chris Riccardi again. I just wanted to say thank you. This has been time well spent, and I appreciate you keeping us on track. Great information was shared here today, and curious to know how we can support the ECA from down in the southern part of the state. Happy to assist.
Excellent. Please do email Christopher, if you would, email info@earthquakecountry.org. And others who are involved with amateur radio. I think that is a group that we should probably create one of our statewide committees for. And it's a type of communications. We could have just a general communications group too, but it maybe becomes that. But I think there are a lot of members already active in amateur radio, others who should be, like myself, get involved, and others who may be interested. So let's get that started. Again, info@earthquakecountry.org. Any way you can reach us, just reach out and we'll put that together. Maybe have a call in a few weeks.
And we could create our own net.
There you go.
That's right.
Mark
So are
doesn't
there
know
any
what that
questions
is.
or comments before we close?
I think Lance has his hand up.
Okay.
Yes, as co-chair with John Hammond of the Speakers and Events Committee, as we anticipate a live shakeout next fall, starting in the late winter, early spring, we expect to have a couple of training classes for people who want to be able to do presentations on behalf of ECA for the 7 steps and perhaps other presentations as well. So if that is something you are interested in, you can put your, just put a note to me in the chat box and I'll keep you on the list of people to notify. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Margaret?
Okay, so it is 11:29. We have stayed on time, Mark. And so just want to remind you that the next meeting, put it on your calendar for February the 9th, 10 o'clock to 11:30. Also remember to apply for the mini awards, open from November the 19th through December the 10th at earthquakecountry.org/mini awards. And also anybody interested in participating in any of our SoCal committees, we would love to have you. And so go ahead and contact us for that at SoCal@earthquakecountry.org. And we look forward to our next meeting and to check our emails that come out for different webinars that are going on. Those are happening throughout the quarter as well. And so thank you, everybody. Have a safe weekend or a week. Those that are off tomorrow, enjoy. And so we'll see you in February.